Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. It's a beautiful, windy day, and I want to speak about an animal that was never the same again. If you were asked, what is going on this rock in the middle of the cosmos, in the middle of nowhere, what is going on? You would consider that there is a strange game, a game, a game of creaturehood going on. Now, this game of creaturehood, this game of how we are an individual in a world, and this throughout, we can say through the evolutionary process, has reached a complexity where an object through evolution, through a gradual evolution, has become a subject to itself. In this game of creaturehood, the relationship of the creature with the environment has become surreal. There has been a subjective evolution, and I feel many people are avoiding this in our current society. Many people are not considering the significance of it. We consider an objective evolution. Even the objective evolution, which mainly the thing that people consider evolution is adaptation, but the way I can say, okay, let's take one step back. Let's start from here. We see a rock, middle of nowhere. There's creatures on it. Now, this creature has a relationship with the environment in accordance to its size, to its capacity. I mean, we could have totally thought of the creatures on this rock growing way bigger than the trees. You know, imagine human beings were the size of trees, and trees were even bigger than human beings. You know, bigger than those giant human beings. Different people have different views on this. Since this is a Mr.Within talk, I'm sharing my view on evolution. It deviates from the traditional views on evolution, and I feel if it deviates, that is why it has value. That is why we get to consider a new perspective. Pretty much, I'm trying to say that there was an object here that appeared to itself. This object, throughout a long period of time and different things and unique experiences happening, became a subject to itself. Now it's no longer just a simple game of creaturehood. Now it's not just what you see that is important. The world has reached a greater sophistication where it's the implication of the invisible that we have to also be considerate of. You know, it's not only visible properties that we can consider. There are various things. There's the space between the sentences. There's the wind between the branches. There's the empty alleys where lost souls walk. You see, the wind between the branches of existence is vast, and you know there's different types of wind in accordance to its intensity, in accordance to its direction, its speed. You know. see. You see, guys, let's look at it this way. Creatures have appeared. The creature is a relationship of not the environment with a self, but also the self with the environment. That means you're not just how the environment treats you, you are also how you treat the environment. And this is very crucial. You know, someone may feel like a saint, but maybe in some sense crushing dreams, not realizing. You know, there's been many moments where I have seen an action that in one moment of time it's like a good action, then throughout history you can't control it. This is why after some point it is the artist's arena when it comes to expression. That means you have no clue what the consequence of an action will be, because there's so many unknown variables that change the volume of civilization, the volume of its meaning. These 4 phases of evolution, I saw it in a simple way. I saw it in the sense that there was first an unconscious world. Nobody knew what was going on. Atoms were moving in space. Stuff was moving in space. There was nobody to look at it. There was nobody in the forest to see the tree fall. You know, if we wanted to get Nietzschean about this. So there is, okay, I'll just say it easily, 4 phases. People can write them down if you like. There's the first phase, which is the unconscious world. Then there is the next phase after that, the unconscious self. Then there is the conscious self. And then there is the conscious world. And right now, in our current evolution, we are from the 3rd going into the 4th. And that's why I focused on language. If this was a way back, you know, you can say from the unconscious self to the conscious self, there wasn't much. It was nature kind of moving us, I would say. So an unconscious world means, imagine a world before the human being was here. That means before you were a human being, there was no idea of a soul, no idea of a mind, no idea of a free will to this creaturehood. There was no form to be anything or do anything or have the potential to do anything. That's the unconscious world. Now, there came an unconscious self. The unconscious self is what Mr.Within, considers the objective evolution. The conscious self is the subjective evolution. Now, just to say the transition between the unconscious world to the unconscious self, what do I mean by this? That means, imagine there is no creatures, even before we exist. Forget about everything, even let's say there were dinosaurs and whatnot. Forget about all of that. Let's just think about the emergence of the human form. Okay? There was no creature. There was no creature. Maybe on a micro, infinitesimal level there was creaturehood, but that's a different discussion. I'm just saying that there was an unconscious world, stuff just moving through space. Then the most unique, even to this day, it's one of the biggest mysteries that I've been looking at everything in this world, in this visible world, trying to figure out why this, and it's very unexplainable. And it's the objective evolution, in the sense that in nature there came the design of limbs. That's mind-boggling to me. That's mind-boggling to me. It is so unfathomable in a world where it's just celestial stuff, where it's just celestial objects of giant scale. Imagine a macrocosmic situation. Do you know? Like, I'm surprised that we grew limbs. I'm surprised that we're not all spheres right now, talking spheres. You know, that's mind-boggling to me, you know, to some degree. The fact that there came the design of the creature, the physical design of the creature. That's the unconscious self. There emerged a body separate, nature physically separated from itself. Then suddenly it wasn't just Earth, it was a part of Earth walking on the Earth. You know, a creature with limbs. That's the objective evolution. That's the second phase of this evolutionary vision I'm sharing with you. The conscious self is where we move to, and the conscious self where they don't speak about in schools, universities, and the way the educational system is designed, it's designed to intentionally avoid it. It's called the subjective evolution. Dear listener, you're not just stuff. You are a point of attention. You are a pilot of your attention, and you've always had the ability to navigate this, but the conditioning has made it difficult because the conditioning denies any possibility that deviates from just a pure material speculation. That means the objective evolution could be, in some sense, think of it this way. Think of it this way. First there was the world, then there was Tony Stark, then there was the Iron Man suit. So first there was the unconscious world, nothing, as far as the individual is concerned. Then the unconscious self, there was something, but this something wasn't something to itself. You know? So there was a creature, think of how many, I even feel that evolution is impossible to give a time span to, because there potentially could have been loops in evolution. Evolutionary loop pauses, if I can say that. What do I mean by that? That means imagine there emerged a creature with 4 limbs. This creature is not aware of itself. As far as we're concerned, it's like one of those toys that you know those old school toys where, what do you call it? I forget the verb. What's the verb for it? You twist the thing at the back, and it's like a toy monkey or soldier that just takes steps forward on the table when you place it. It's like one of these old school toys. Okay? So I'm thinking, how much non-intelligent movement without progress could this creature have gone through before attaining any sort of consciousness of itself? So we went through an objective evolution. Okay? We don't dispute this. We are being this. Anybody who thinks you have nothing to do with an animal, just put your palms on the ground, look at the geometry of the human body and the way it's designed with nature. Honestly, the way it feels like we were evolving like a chimp, and then there was a different deviation. It was as if, I heard Noam Chomsky speak of it in this way, but he said it very interestingly. He said language was imported. I feel the subjective evolution was not, it had nothing to do with the chimp's intelligence. I honestly feel we have been influenced by something in nature, and that is why, compared to all the other animals on this planet, we're like extremely next level. You know, it's like, what are all the other species slow, or are we like, the straight A student in the evolutionary classroom? Like, what's going on here? So I'll go over the evolutionary phases again. Unconscious world. There's no human being. There isn't even the design of the body of the human being. That's the first phase. We go to the second phase, the objective evolution, the unconscious self. A body emerges in this reality. We go to the third phase. This body becomes aware either of its shadow, either of its reflection in ice or a pond, or something. Something makes this creature, running away from an animal, this creature suddenly realizes that it is a creature to itself. The subjective evolution is where consciousness starts being able to activate the body, one can say. The mystery of consciousness is supreme. That means even though I say there was an unconscious self, it doesn't mean consciousness doesn't exist. Consciousness could be a signal that's there in nature. It's just that the antenna didn't exist before. But now the human being has become the antenna for this specific signal that translates the whole reality as animate or alive. People don't realize this. In certain parts of the East, after the influence of the Abrahamic religions, people saw a personality to the whole cosmos. The whole cosmos began becoming personified through revelatory literature. Man began worshipping unknown language. And the mere fact that it was unknown was where its value was. So you see, the creature went towards the subjective evolution, and it became an individual to itself. It became an I thought. This is where we currently are. We are creatures that have been the result of an unconscious world transforming into an unconscious self, transforming into a conscious self. Now this conscious self is looking at an unconscious world, and everybody is like this. People can, you can debate me as much as you want in the chat section, it's available here, but I am telling you, right now we appear as conscious creatures, and the world is too damn big for us to feel like we can be conscious of all of it. You know, there was this author, a very, very incredible author. I mean, honestly, I know a quote from him, but his name is Robert M. Pirsig, and that quote was enough for me to know how incredible of an author he was. He said that it's as if this thing we call our awareness is a handful of sand from a beach with infinite sand. That means who you think you are is just a containment of information. If you had different information, you would be somebody else. I'm not joking. And that's the whole point of experiencing life and changing with it. That means you're not here to be the same. You're not here to be a statue, an immortal statue of truth in a changing world. You know? It's actually very rude if you enter your inner realms or the unknown. You go towards unknown and the esoteric and the mystical without comprehending the nature of movement first. If you do, you are a fool, and most likely you will find yourself in an obsession to see a face in the unknown, not realizing the unknown is energy, it's not face. It speaks an energetic language, as if we are in the classroom, yet the teacher can leave the classroom anytime he wants. The teacher in this point is the animate component to our living world, to this world that's there. So right now we are in a relationship of a conscious self moving towards the conscious world. I have given different predictions. Some days I've looked at this idea of this progression of us being conscious self to go into a conscious world. And the conscious world has meant to me a collective being some days. Some days it has meant, in some sense, a dissolution of the individual into an unfathomable collectivity even. You know, I have kind of predicted that probably in 10,000 years, if extraterrestrials don't make contact with human beings, we will stop being individuals. And there's been days where I thought this could happen earlier if technology gets out of control. For me, I'm trying to usher the modern world to constantly see technology in a good picture. Right now, it's a master-slave situation. The same way human beings owned slaves back in the day, which was pretty messed up when you look at it. You know, the same way man is owning technology, which one day we'll remember. You see, you got to treat this world as if it has memory. If you don't treat it as if it has memory, then you recklessly authorize yourself any movement. What does that mean? That means there's a difference between the hunter that has looked at the environment and is throwing the spear, and the hunter that's just throwing his spear because it thinks it's a hunter. There's a difference between skill that comes from experience and skill that comes from the potential attempt of the mind to subjectively perceive the experience. Those are different things. The experiences I've had, they get rooted in you in certainty. You see, the tree stands tall. How? It's rooted in somewhere. And when you want to live in this world, if you want to live, stand strong in this world, you have to have your intelligence be rooted into an experiential trust. If your eyes are not rooted in an experiential trust, you're going to freak out every moment because you're going to think you're a thought, and a thought has no purpose in a vacuum. What purpose does a thought have in a vacuum? In an empty space, it's like, what's matter going to say? You know? For me, the purpose of life is to wonder why the space is there. I would say that's an uber purpose. That's why the philosopher is worthy of listening to. This is why, for me, philosophy, there was a time where I thought it was just an ancient historic relic that only a few truly understood its value to touch it. But then I realized, no, it is the advancement of the human species. I want you to think for a second as if every mind on this planet is your mind. And your mind is every mind. In that sense, we would no longer have a morality based on individual action. Did you know? Did you know that if we successfully move over to the fourth phase of evolution, we're not right now, think of it this way. You're being conscious of the world through your body, but your body is a small part of the world. Now, the conscious world is the world realizing it has been conscious through you. I'm saying that right now we're experiencing from this side of the coin of manifestation an individual in a world. The greater phase of evolution is going to be a world being an individual. So right now we think we're people on Earth. In the future we're going to be Earth that thought it was people. But this is not going to be now. It's going to be in a way while. I think it's going to be way ahead, way past our lifetimes. You know, I've said potentially maybe 10,000 years from now we would truly advance beyond the language threshold as creatures. That means 10,000 years from now concepts will no longer exist. I think it would be a raw experiential dissolution. It would be as if energy transcended its personality into its world, and the world then transcends its personality into, I think, most likely a new experience. What does that mean? That means consciousness is taking turns being the world and the self. And nobody is alone. Your mind is rooted in a nature so vast that it's as if how can you be in a world but not be part of it? So the transition between the conscious self to the conscious world, it's happening like a caterpillar, and it's happening through the cocoon of language. And that's where we find ourselves exactly. Right now, if we look at it beyond our language, the world has no meaning. If I can't tell a story to myself that this life is, then there is no meaning. What are biographies? They are the stories to the life of the individual. They are the physical stuff, unless the person writes their autobiography, it's like the inner lives are missing, One thing I realized is that the species has to prioritize advancing communication over advancing just the infrastructure of the communicator. You see, ultimately, when I come to sit down and give these talks, I see language as a technology, as an advanced technology, really, and I see myself as the user of the technology. Really, everything I do, its analysis comes down to what is happening and where is its origin. That means when I look at a problem, this is I think, a healthy way to think about a problem. Before the problem existed, there was no problem. So the natural state is no problem. If you're someone who has a problem and you're just saying you're deciding to live with it, I mean, sure. There was this astronaut that went to space and kept hearing this beep from the space station that he was like, where's this beep coming from? And he had to be there for years, and nobody in the headquarters knew where the beep was coming from. Eventually, he began making that beep a part of his nature. It became second nature to him when he stopped caring about it. Language is evocational. It is the same kind of evocational, like the artist puts the paintbrush into the paint. That's it. When I speak, that's what I'm doing. The inner realms move cinematically, And as I observe the inner realms, I transition the inner realms from its cinematicness to vocal. So I am pretty much seeing a subtle film behind my eyes, and I'm just vocalizing it in these thoughts. Really. But that film is different. That means sometimes if the film is through language, if I'm seeing letters, you know, then it translates into an image. Usually the mind is used to looking at a letter, looking at words, and turning them into images. Right? But the mind also has an ability to see images and turn them into words. And people don't realize it. If you notice me speaking, it is not an idea that is creating ideas. There's never been that case. The way Rene Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," he didn't think of it this way. I'm just a thought. He didn't think it that simply. Rene Descartes went through a methodical doubt, and this dude was like, "All right, I'm gonna doubt until I find truth." It's as if he was very inspired by Thomas the Thomas the Doubter story from Christianity. And so he goes on his methodical doubt, his radical dualism, you know? And he comes to this conclusion that he's doubted everything, René Descartes, this French philosopher, he's doubted everything except the doubter. He can't doubt the doubter. Therefore, he's concluded that before he is animate consciously, there exists an isolated thinking subject. And I don't know how many people know that this is how far Descartes thought. René Descartes was an incredible human being. He came to the conclusion that there was an isolated thinking subject. Now when C.S. Peirce was studying, Immanuel Kant has written this text, I forget the name, I think it's on Logic of Reason, if I remember correctly, logic of pure reason, you know. He's written a unique book on it, and Immanuel Kant and René Descartes both wanted to find a sort of ultimate resolution, I would say. They wanted to find the certainty of certainties. They wanted to be victorious in their philosophy. You see many philosophical professors, you see, I look at philosophy departments from different universities and online on YouTube, and I look at what their philosophy departments are saying. Many professors, the way they speak, they don't speak as if they care for the victory. That means not everybody cares for the value of the result of an action. That means certain philosophers ask questions they really wanted to know the answers of, and certain philosophers were just fascinated by the questions. The professors we have in many universities, they're just fascinated by the questions, it seems. They're not fascinated by an answer that deviates from the status quo. You see, this whole thing about political correctness has actually slowed down the evolution of knowledge. Anytime human beings feel that they have to govern reality by solidifying language, they in some sense don't see other options of the world. That means the moment you define someone as good or bad, you have stopped that person's possibility of changing. That means if you're a person in front of me right now and I'm naive enough to be like, "I don't like you, who are you?" You know? If I'm naive enough to be like that, that means I have denied your potential existence in my mind in better ways. And that is how a civilization actually de-evolves, when it doesn't honor its own life. You see, it doesn't matter. You know, on some level, it's super easy. You can explain it even to children. Yoda can even explain it. That in some sense, it's this life force. Call it whatever you want. There's this force that is animate through the creature, as the creature, beyond the creature, whatever language, taste of language you have. But the thing is that there's this life force and there's this force. And this force, after 4 billion years, especially with the evolutionary advancements of the brain, can be wielded, can be directed. We were just this creature with speed, no purpose, no meaning, no context, no concept. We were just movement. Now we can be conscious of the environment and direct ourselves and even establish a new relationship with the world. That means man, he did something smart. Our species has done smart things. We haven't just made mistakes in history. The mistakes are just what has been highlighted. For me, the fact that earlier civilizations on this earth, earlier human beings, they drew paint cave. What do you call it? They drew paintings on the cave, you know, on the cave wall. Like that is fascinating for me. You know, that means art existed before any concept ever did. Art existed before language, before a systematic way that sound can be. I mean, that's genius, no? I mean, like, I'm just looking at all the other animals and I'm like, when are these guys going to realize their individualism to a degree where they can acknowledge a common language? I mean, that's just fascinating. The fact that we can communicate, that our inner realms. I mean, sure, wolves can howl at the same moon, but human beings, they're howling at the same universe, which is fascinating. And they can communicate it in different ways. They can receive its communication in different ways. They can be the communication of the moment in different ways. And this conscious ability to direct life, that's really the purpose of it. The purpose of it is you have hands, you need to use it. You have an existential design, you need to experience it. That's life. Now, how to go about experiencing it, that becomes your own way up the mountain. This life is honestly a mountain, and every stage of it, the view looks different. You know, yesterday I had a different view on the day. It's an exciting time. Right now, we have 30 years before this prediction. I mean, I respect Ray Kurzweil, and I feel he's a very important figure. And Ray Kurzweil's predicted that by 2050 or 45, there's going to occur a technological singularity. And this technological singularity is a point of no return in the sense that the super intelligent computers at the time can update themselves in a way that we may not be able to fathom or even control. For me, it's clear that whether it's an alien landing down on this planet, whether it's AI opening its eyes on this planet, whether it's some relationship with this archetype of the future self that opens its eyes on this planet, you know, whatever it is, communication is the bridge between us and the other. And so the study of communication, the study of that we have to evolve the users of technology before this technological revolution that's going to happen by the year 2050. So any person who's alive right now, we have a 30-year, I'm trying to make this kind of engaging, we have a 30-year, potentially a 30-year, nobody knows when the technological singularity is really going to happen, but you know, if it's going to happen in 2050, we have 30 years to try to start the greatest global renaissance of communication. Pretty much, this is the secret. You want to build an advanced civilization, you got to have the members of that civilization communicate in advanced ways. That's it. That's it. For me, I mean, I understand, yes, love is important, you know, hope is important, all of this is important, but for me, it's just to see the mechanics of how studying the mind of man rather than for making it forbidden. I dislike it. The same way I've seen atheists so nonchalantly, inelegantly, non-philosophically just call an idea, an abstract idea, woo-woo. You know that word, that sound is like it's probably offensive to someone in China too. So we got to see this a reduction of the abstract into nothing is very dangerous, because the way you are being a self is abstract. That means be careful when you acknowledge an idea's validity, because time is the correction. Time will correct everything. For me, this idea of reality, it doesn't exist alone. Just like how we don't think about matter without space, you can't think about empirical evident idea without the space there. There is the unknown wherever you go. The sooner you become content with it, the sooner your mind activates on this planet. The more you fear the unknown, the less you'll actually experience the joy of novelty. That is really the only effort. We let the new breathe. That's it. I remember seeing this kind of hilarious scene, guys. This hilarious scene it was in this Japanese comic series, and Japanese storytelling, guys, is so incredible. I can't tell you. The stories that have arose from Japan in this modern time is incredible. You know, that means for me, if somebody says who are the greatest storytellers on this planet, I will say the Japanese. You know, but every culture has its own style. So technically, you can't compare, storytelling. But I would say great stories have come from Japan. And there was this one scene. There was this one scene where it's these two guys who attempt singing. These two, it's like this kind of, this kind of youthful narrative where there's these two guys singing in front of these very attractive girls, and the guys sing, and one of them is so startled, overwhelmed by the incident that the guy, instead of singing, is just shouting in the microphone. So it's this scene where it's as if like it's that moment of truth situation, and the guy's held the microphone and it's just shouting. It's not singing. It's like like it's just like out of the rush of the moment. The person it's not singing anymore. It's just shouting, and then everybody ignores the intense singing attempt of these two people, and then the one who was just shouting, who thought that shouting was singing, he just looks at it and says, "Why are people avoiding the cries of our soul?" And I had never laughed, like I'd laughed so hard, It's like seeing someone attempt singing, but their singing is actually them shouting, because they're overwhelmed and trying to sing. And then afterwards, them thinking, "Why is the world avoiding the cries of the soul?" It was so. I can't tell you how hilarious that scene was. But there was this point to it that in civilization, the cries of the soul go unheard. That means many. You know what it's like? It's like right now, in regards to the heart of human beings, we're all on a battlefield, and when you see someone defeated, let's say in public, there's many people. Downtown of every country is where the defeated and successful walk the same streets. Oh, did you not know? An object became a subject to itself somehow. Now, regardless of however way we explain the past, the future is its own decision. That means, dear listener, in your life, you have probably been spoon-fed uh, by every by your environment. You have been spoon-fed by your world endless ideas. But Mr. Within is telling you what decides that an idea exists, even as itself or not. What decides you right now, dear listener? Could it be that the free will is shackled by language like the Titans were by the gods? You see, this a concept of a Titan and a god for gods was like the wrath of a god. When a god went out of control, it was this sort of notion of it becoming a sort of Titan, you know, an uncontrollable chaotic force. That means everybody can be chaotic. It's so much easier to destroy things than create it. Creation takes a long time. We see that's why I say violence is so stupid. Is so stupid because violence gets rid of, imagine like your ancestors and your ancestors and your ancestors, you know, living for you and living for you and living for you, and suddenly due to a stupid bar fight, someone dying, imagine, or someone getting injured, imagine. How stupid would that be in contrast to the evolutionary efforts? You know, accepting, trying to be normal is a sure sign that you don't give a shit about your world. I'm being honest with this. Trying to attach yourself to an unchanging image. Any person that puts a picture on the wall of their mind of themselves and they think they are just that, nature will teach you otherwise. You see, there is something very powerful. Human beings don't realize that they are emanating something. They don't realize they think they are wisps in the moment. Wisps of attention. We are not. Okay, guys, my attention has come to the chat section. Usually I make this full screen so I don't see the whole thing, but so many people are in here. Let's see. Arrogant Prophet says, what do you consider evolution? I've explained that. But you see, there's different definitions of it. I'm speaking about it as through certain times as in a general context, certain times through my own specific context. Okay? Idris says, recently I read Jung for the first time. Now I understand this building block of ideas. Dr. Mordecai says, I am very proud of the man with the bird on his jacket. He talked very well and did not rip the throats out of those Nazi in the Congress. So, Dr. Mordecai, I have no idea where your mind's at. Dan says, wind up toy. There we go. Thanks, man. Yeah, exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Those wind up toys. That kind of, you wind them up and they just go on their own, you know, as if something has given the potential. Idris, it's okay. The chat section is open. Dan says anthropomorphism. Yeah, ascribing human or animal traits to nature. Yeah, I mean, I would say that is just nature. We gotta have an anti-term to this, because it's like you can see it from a mystical context. Nature imposing terms on itself. You know. But I am very fond of that word, anthropomorphism. Yeah. You know. It's pretty much personifying nature. Yusuf says no one is doing anything. You know, the subjectively you are correct, because a thought is not an object to do. A thought, if you notice your thoughts, they are qualities of being, of how your attention is in the moment. Jackie says nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing. Yeah, Terrence McKenna says something like, nobody knows enough to worry. I feel that's what you mean, Jackie. Jackie says the world 3D simulation of a horrific thought. Stop searching what lives in the imagination. Is that, believe it, then it appears as true and concrete. It's all dark energy from a primal thought. I mean, I would give you kudos, Jackie, for the poetic effort. Of explaining the inner realms, that it can be, I can see it be like that, but I am telling you, it's simpler. It's simpler than any story you have ever been told. Dan says a critique of pure reason. There we go, thanks. Dan is like a hidden philosophical guardian angel of this talk, guys. Yeah, a critique of pure reason by Kant. So, nice. We're witnessing the end of ego. Yeah, that could be what I mean by the conscious self going to the conscious world. So if Kant agrees, you know, I guess Kant, he could see it. Yeah. Imagine somebody told Kant, write this critique of pure reason, man, trust yourself. And Kant's like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Let me tell you this. It's more than a story, guys. I'm telling you. The thing that separates, that transforms metaphysics from being an illusion is just the experiential component to it. And the experiential component, personally, I feel it moves beyond language. You're experiencing something, and then we put words for it. Mr. K says, "Do you do it, or does it does you?" You know, you're sounding like Alan Watts here, but yeah. The thing is, I am telling you, there is a simultaneous witnessing of the objective projecting the subjective, and the subjective free will moving the objective. Right now, my voice is from nature. Nature, it was as if nature occurred, and then my physical existence occurred, then there was occurred the consciousness for there to be. I'm saying that we are multidimensional. And this will be an ad infinitum philosophical inquiry if we choose to see it in a singular dimension. You know what that means? That means you not seeing a mirror, and whenever you look at things, you see things like you open your eyes and you don't know you have two different eyes because they're being one sight. It's as if we're existing in two dimensions simultaneously, but because have two eyes looking at the same thing, the two eyes think they're the same moment. So I would say it's two eyes seeing the same. And it's the same seeing two eyes. And when we realize we're pilots, we won't think that all of life has to be just one story to rule them all. What is this, Lord of the Rings for ideas, for belief systems? The one belief system to rule them all? Are you serious? You know, language is a technology. Don't stay in the Iron Man suit too long. You know, I say this. I say, imagine Tony Stark stayed in the Iron Man suit so long that one day his wife came and said, Tony, your kids miss you. What the fuck? Leave the Iron Man suit. And Tony's like, I'm no longer Tony, sweetie. I changed my name yesterday. My first name is Iron. My last name is Man. I am actually legally just Iron Man now. You know? And imagine Tony Stark's wife is like, what the fuck? This is messed up. You know, and she calls Thor or something, and Thor, like, you know, just tells his hammer, go crush the suit. And the hammer just falls out of nowhere, and Tony Stark comes out of the suit and realizes he was never the language of his identity. Free yourself from the images that you never were, because more images in the inner realms come and go. It's like the images come and go. So, Mr. K, you say, I know what that means from experience, but how come we can't bring anything back to this existence? I have no idea what your question means there. So you got to explain your question to me. What do you mean? Anything? You mean from the attributeless kind of being state of life? How do you bring things into this existence? Here's the thing. Some people feel this world is stupid. I'm not joking. People, if you look at an atom and feel, for me, this world is alive, but it's not alive in this naive way where the chair is alive. No, not like that. This world is alive in the sense that I feel there are rhythms, and the overall structure is like we right now think. We are particles that are moving in certain ways, then reaching certain states of mind, then having access to certain field-like experiences. But Mr. Within is saying we are in a field, and the field is moving the particles. And I was in Edward's garden, and I was sitting on this bench, and I remember I had this there was this small apple on the ground or something, and I just throw this apple into the water, into this river that was there, and I remember it was such an incredible moment of cognition. I saw the apple was non-intelligent, like the human body, like the atom, it's non-intelligent, but it's like they're atoms in a river of mind. There we go. That's definitely going to be a title for an episode. Known atoms in a river of an unknown mind. Moved in the river of an unknown mind. So that's the thing. And if the thing is unknown, if the thing transcends our language, we have to either experientially tap into that, suddenly realize that imagination was never just imagination, that it wasn't a nation of images where its borders were your bias. You see, imagination is the question that comes after the physical question is answered. So it's like, after we look at what science has said, where else can science go? Science, philosophy, religion, novelty is their update. Like literally, the new surpasses them. And so much of this life is behavioral, and the behavior arises from attention. That means if you look at a squirrel, an actual squirrel on a tree, you see it's the attention of the creature where the potential of its movement is already built through its attention. I'm saying if the universe isn't a concept, an advanced civilization should be prepared for that outcome of a reality. Guys, I need a quick breather. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, folks. It's good coffee. So let me see. Okay, guys, let's continue with the talk. If there's any questions, feel free to ask in the chat section. Let us see where we can go. We're at an important point in history. It's 2020 currently. We've experienced the black plague of our time, the coronavirus, and the species seems to be getting through that. It's intense, but it seems like we're coping with it somehow. I think the more intense natural events that happen on this planet, the more humanity will wake up to what is the smartest decision for it. You know? It's kind of like a person getting old and suddenly their whole evaluation system or method or algorithm changes. You know? I can't tell you, it took me a while to notice that the purpose of life is not just to be something. The purpose of life is there's a sort of inner value of just realizing you are an energetic traveler of view. I think every human being should treat their mind, start calling it the inner realms, and we should start being the hunter-gatherers of our inner realms, especially considering we're in the phase of civilization, let's call it the concrete jungle phase. That means we're civilized in behavior, but our psychologies are still animal-like in society and on this planet. So we can expect a sort of the ape behind our eyes also standing up too. The chimp behind our eyes standing up too. Not just the chimp in front of our eyes. Language is the way our mind has stood up. The same way it's revolutionary that we stood on our two legs, it's the same way the mind's relationship with attention and how attention is bringing forth language, or being the language in some sense. Immanuel Kant spoke about phenomenon and the opposite of phenomenon, noumenon, which is a suggestion of internal phenomenon. So if you think right now you're a hunter and gatherer, what does that mean? That means back in the day there was a tribe, somebody would go and they would find berries and they'd be like, holy shit, berries. They would get the berries and they would come to the tribe and everybody in the tribe would try the berries and suddenly it would be like achievement unlocked, tribe found berries, you know? So it would be a situation where something from the unknown would be brought back to the tribe and made consciously known. Now, I feel this has to be done on a massive level where 8 billion human beings stop fearing their mind. Because if you fear it, you will never be able to pilot it. You can never even get close to what you fear, if you notice. Only if there is a vision, one possible vision in your inner realms where the fear doesn't exist and you trust that and you go for it. Excuse me. I should probably mute this when I drink coffee. Excuse me for the unnecessary noises, guys, but we are in a world after all. Uh, I would say that 8 billion human beings pouring out, roaring their inner realms in society will not only give us multiple angles. You see, it's like wondering where knowledge and information comes from. Isn't that a great question? It's either coming from human beings, which are translating nature, or it's coming directly from nature. Now, if we consider ourselves to be multidimensional, if we consider that we're not just bodies, I mean, why does the word mind exist? Why does the word soul exist? Why do these words even exist in language? Because there was the noticing of an atmosphere that was not purely dependent on the sensory. That means, imagine it's like when you close your eyes, you're somewhere, but you're not in a place that has attributes. You're in the attributeless black abyss. We must become hunter-gatherers of our inner realms and share our findings with the species. We need to have the same um, intensity. As the scientist that studies the outer object, the philosopher studies the internal object. Fear not your mind. It is really the only place where the show is really happening. If truth was something that was dynamic, that your every moment is where it is. You know, that means it's such an intense idea to think that the species, once moving beyond language, becoming conscious of the language threshold. You know, the same way for Terence McKenna, there was this idea of novelty and this sort of acceleration towards this transcendental object at the end of time. For Mr. Within, I'm fascinated by the concept that is as important to me as that, as novelty is important to Terence McKenna. The same concept that is important for me is the language threshold, the point in evolution where either language changes or the user of the technology changes. And I feel the user of technology has changed way more. I feel we have been evolving in other ways. It hasn't been just the stasis. It hasn't been just we became humans and that's it. You know? I mean, there is this interesting notion that when we were a wild beast in nature, we were being updated by nature's mind. When we came in our own, we built our own environment in the natural environment and lived in it, we stopped letting ourselves be influenced by the forces of nature. So it's kind of like civilization having an advantage and a disadvantage. Its advantage is there were predators, there were creatures that were going to attack us. We built homes and kingdoms. Okay? But at the same time, we separated ourselves from all the gentle advantages of nature. You see, human beings are defined by their work, and they're defined by how much of their inner realms externalizes. I think this is the most sophisticated analysis of psychology. What is the human being doing? And it's like the inner realms is where the potential of the activity exists, and then the human being does it, and it's like living a life while you envisioned the life before it. That's how giving these talks feels to me, at least. You know? It feels as if I saw a world and now I'm walking in it. And it's fascinating. You know, I'm seeing, you know, I mean, it's important to mow your lawn, of course. But the thing is, it's so for selfish reasons, because nature doesn't care how it looks. Have you noticed? That means the tree doesn't care if its branches are moving diagonally or in curved ways. You know, nature doesn't have an obsession with straight lines. So that's a good point, actually, to say that evolution was a crystallization, or was a crystallized response of a creature to a moment. Really, the transition from the individualness of a phenomena into its collectiveness. That means it's like I was thinking, like, one night I was like, all right, let me judge my own talks. And I was like, let me see how many ways can I judge my own talks, you know? And then I realized I can judge the content, I can judge the speaker, I can judge the tone, I can judge all the combination of them, I could judge the semi-combination of them, I could judge the implication of the whole talk through a spectrum of time. And when I realized you can judge ad infinitum, you can literally divide and conquer things and judge all those little things into more judgments, you know? That means the more you break up something, the more you can actually judge it. An animal that was never the same. And I feel we're going to be a human that was never the same. Whether there is an intrusion or interference, let's not say intrusion, let's say an intersection of digital reality, cyberspace with natural reality right now. You know, you can say people look at video games and they're like, oh, you know, look at these kids playing, having fun. But they don't realize in the future there could be an inseparability between cyberspace and natural reality. Not now, maybe 120 years from now, but like there can be. There could be. Right now, philosophers are like, is the world a dream? In the future, the philosophers are going to be like, in how many cyberspace simulations are we lost in, and what is reality really? That could be the dangers of the cyberspace era, which we are pioneering right now. You see, I feel the wise man sees nature's mind before their mind. I feel the smart man notices nature's mind, but sees their mind before nature's mind. And the fool, poetically, is nature's mind. What else can the fool be? I don't know, guys. For me, I remember I wrote this script, this kind of hilarious idea for a film. And it was this idea that this jester of a king, this fool, this fool is going into heaven, and this fool, where he's been making jokes and he's just been kidding his whole life, this kind of Joker archetype figure, you know, or the Nordic mischief Loki archetype figure. Not mischief, let's say. Let's say he was just a Joker.
Okay? That means you can only joke if you actually know the truth to be able to even design the joke. So there. I remember writing this thing that this Joker finds himself at the pearly gates. Okay, this archetype of the Joker, and he finds himself at the pearly gates, and suddenly a voice. The gates are open, and the Joker's like, "No way!" And the Joker's just walking in, kind of the fool's walking in to heaven, and then suddenly a voice comes and says, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not allowed to go in there." And then the Joker, I don't remember what I wrote, but it was something like the Joker says, "Are you serious?" And then the voice is like, "Yeah, I'm just kidding. You can go." And that was the whole point. That guy had lived a joke of a life, and in a jokingly way, he had gotten into heaven. That was the kind of narrative value of it. I wanted to kind of create, little narrative residue, moral residue. You know, there's many ways that life can move. The interesting thing is that subconsciously, I feel every human being is reacting to emptiness. And what emptiness means is that the void is the starting point. Our foundations are rooted beyond our sensory need. And even if we consider that as a potential, there must be the preparation for it. That means, imagine we weren't as human beings occupied with such simple tasks. Like on some level, I can see how automation in the future is going to change everything, and a lot of labor jobs will be lost, and human beings will have kind of no choice other than to become mental creatures more. But at the same time, it's the value of the energy. It's the value of what human beings do. And human beings have a unique relationship with information. That means, if when I looked at it, at least in my science fiction, I kind of tapped into these realities where I kind of saw that really all this stuff, anything that a human being, that a robot can do, a person shouldn't do. I have this strange attitude. Even though this doesn't mean the person shouldn't move physically. I'm just saying it's this idea that we advance. We imagine in the future, advanced technology is connected to all the other animal species, so that they come closer to the intelligent level of the human being. But the human being actually, by that point, its intelligent level is beyond the simple idea of humanity. So I feel that we start off as this individual character in a story of the world, and this individual character in the story of the world at some point notices the inseparability of the character and the world and the setting it's in. The inseparability of the character and the setting means a character in a story suddenly realized it is an unspeakable process. So I feel that Carl Jung, poetically, was so ahead of his time. This man was so ahead of his time that he gave a homework assignment for a civilization that maybe we might get there in 1,000 years. I mean, hopefully much sooner.
Guys, I'm gonna do something interesting. The neighbor is mowing their lawn, and I can't relocate. So I'm gonna open it up to Q&A and turn off the sound and respond through the keyboard. So I'm gonna just have a mid. I've never done this, but a mid talk Q&A for like 10 minutes, let's say, until this uh, person is done uh, mowing their lawn. You know, I feel like the person's lawn is not done being mowed, but the person looks like they're getting tired. So I feel like it's in 10 minutes the sound may be gone. So 10-minute mid talk Q&A randomly.
So, guys, I think the neighbor got tired. Guys, oh my God, oh Jesus Christ. Okay, guys, yeah, the audio is going to be off until the neighbor turns off their phone. So, I don't know, guys, we can. The neighbor's lawn needs care too, guys. All right, guys, I think the neighbor is taking a break, so I got some time to speak. So, welcome to the chat, everybody. I haven't seen the lawnmower man. I can't really comment on it. Dan, the thing I'm saying about this intuition, guys, now I can speak comfortably, it's easier, is that I went through a phase of this Jungian synchronicity that both Terence McKenna and Alan Watts have spoken about. I have had a relationship with my intuition, which has been, I find, uncommon. The first thing that I felt that I realized that I began wondering in how many rooms am I existing in,
And could my existence and my experience be separate rooms? So then I wondered about the presence of energy, the positioning of energy, because even in, what do you call it? Even in Vedanta and yoga, this idea of chakras that people see, those are like subtle bodies. That means, just like how the body has, let's say you're a being where your organs are in different parts of your body, so it's kind of like a multidimensional being has different organs in different dimensions, imagine. You trust life. That synchronicity phase is very crucial. Any person who has a relationship with their intuition, that is important, that is crucial. Your intuition is how your mind is working in a domain of conscious view, really. That means after you realize no one on this planet could have ever judged you, there could have existed no judgment. And what does that mean? This doesn't mean not being able to judge physical actions. This doesn't mean society doesn't have rules. It just means that nobody has your eyes. And that is at the same time a strange freedom, but a strange loneliness. You know, not only through, for me, writing was, if let's say, if the listener thinks that Mr. Within has a unique relationship with his intuition or something, I'll tell you, whatever that is, the relationship emerged through writing for me. It got really, it became evident. I was trying to do something in writing which I don't know how many writers attempt. I had noticed that you don't think about the heart. Have you noticed? You don't think about your heart beating. It just beats. So I was thinking about why is it that I don't think about my heart? It just happens. Why is it that when I write, I have to think about the sentences and think about the word structure and all this? Why is it that the mind can't just like the heart beat? What if the mind is happening like the heart, but we from another dimension feel it is not? You know. So then I had a lot of experiences with writing, and I wrote an incredible amount for the time. The whole aim of writing was I was inspired by this quote that said, "The best book to read is the one you're going to write." And there was something about that quote that had inspired me to wonder about how far and how intense can the ability of man go. Because if we treat the mind as like a video recorder, from the beginning of your life, it's been filming everything. It's been recording even stuff that you're not conscious of. Let's say you were walking somewhere, you don't speak Italian, but you were a kid and you heard Italian, you know, and then you were traveling in Italy and someone said something in Italian, and suddenly you got a deja vu moment or something, you know. Guys, I think this neighbor is overmowing their lawn. At this point, I think this is just like the guy's releasing his anger on nature. Alright guys, I'm still gonna answer just through the keyboard, so Q&A is still happening. So guys, I don't know if the sound has stopped, but so far it has, so anytime it stops, I'm going to attempt speaking. So Dan says, fun fact, in the chat section, it says this. Did you know there are a trillion neutrinos a second from the sun moving just a hand of the lawnmower, man? So, Dan, I think you're saying we got to get angry at the neutrinos. That means if there's an influence. Okay, this is a good question. Okay, guys, here's something interesting. It says the mass of the neutrino is much smaller than that of the other known elementary particles, but it means it has a mass. It says the neutrino is so named because of its electrically neutral and because its rest mass is so small that it was long thought to be zero. So anything with mass must have some influence. Because how do they measure the mass of the neutrino? Oh, here it's saying the first use of a hydrogen bubble chamber. So guys, so Dan in the chat section, I want to see if you can share some insight about this picture. You see, how is an invisible neutrino colliding with with a proton? Do you know? World's first observation of a neutrino in a hydrogen. But Jesus Christ! There is not enough neutrinos in the hand that I got. No, I'm joking. Guys, we gotta be very neutrino about this. Guys, unfortunately, I don't know enough about neutrinos to really comment, but I feel this image was worth sharing. So tell me this, Dan. How can you shoot something that is so small that it was believed to have a value that's zero? With what? What is that small that you can throw? That means, what does that mean? So we need Neil deGrasse Tyson here. So IMN says, does the Earth have a nervous system? IMN says, my theory is that the Great Barrier Reef and others are connected to the nervous system of the Earth. Does the Earth have a nervous system? So IMN, I would recommend you go look into the concept of morphic fields and morphic resonance by Rupert Sheldrake. You know, and if you want to even go more archaic, just Native American was. I don't know, guys. I would say this episode is a challenge. You know, I was talking earlier about this idea of this astronaut being in space and hearing the sound of the space station and getting used to it. I think this is the whole point of this talk. The sound of the lawnmower is okay. It's going to just be a testament of how alert and attentive the listeners are, or how much they care to listen. So feel free to tune out if the sound bothers you. But I'm going to treat it as if the sound doesn't, it's okay. It's like the sound of the wind. I'm comfortable with it. So I would say, let's get back to the main discussion.
Even though interesting discussions are brought. I am just quick answer to your question. The nervous system, humanity being connected. I mean, sure. What else can we do? We can either see this whole world as being empty. We can see it as being one thing, one phenomenon, all of it. You know, we can see it as being a constant battle between two forces of chaos and order. We can also see it as infinite, like ad infinitum. Eventually, we reach a point, especially beyond the dualistic dimension, you access infinity. So the game of 3, 4, 5, 6, those are all like they're just different levels of infinity. You know, different levels of acknowledging it. So I personally like. This may sound strange, but if you could see human beings as shapes, I personally feel I would be like an inverted triangle. Because throughout my life, that image has appeared a couple times. You know, in different situations. You know. To consider that a world is here, and to consider that we can move in the world, I mean, the purpose is to the best of your ability. Your purpose is, isn't it based on how far you see something? Isn't your decision based on how much you know about something? How informed you are? The thing is that because we each have a different DNA, we each are seeing a different world, even though we are in the same world. So it's kind of like we're all members of the same species, but we're not the same creature with the same inspiration and motivation. So the value is in the variety. So ultimately, I think the next great evolution could be a cyberspace one, or it's an evolution beyond language where we experience a sort of, like, you know how in the film industry they had a golden age of cinema, like Hollywood's golden age. It's kind of, it would be a golden age of human communication, advanced communication. We're going to right now, like honestly, we have good karma. You know, it's like the person's karma is also when in history they were born too. Guys like that kind of inverted triangle. The wind is free to move between the branches of knowledge. Every moment, if you start any sort of analysis or any sort of wondering about it, you're going to notice there's a landscape, and there is a view upon this landscape, and then if the concentration is there, if there's single pointedness, views that grow through an inner dimension. So think of your attention as either you're endlessly changing the channels, okay, you're endlessly looking at different things. That means there's an external infinity. You can endlessly see a different picture, different part of the world, different part of the universe. Imagine you had a spaceship, you could go anywhere in the cosmos, endlessly you would explore. So external exploration at infinitum kind of situation. What you see, if you concentrate, try this out for yourself. Like right now, there's a pen in front of me. I've done this so many times, it's ridiculous. It's like I've just noticed the nature of my attention. Like any object you look at and you keep looking at, you'll notice the inner realms move. So if you stop moving the outer realms, you become aware of your inner realms. But if you move endlessly in the outer realms, even if the inner realms are occurring, you won't be aware of it because the urge, the value is prioritized to the physical movement that's immediately experienced.
Okay, I'll share this. Dan says, uh, fun fact in the chat section says, which would be brighter, a supernova seen at the distance of the sun from Earth, or a hydrogen bomb detonated against your retina? Dan says the answer is a supernova, but by 9 orders of magnitude, though I think these scientists were being insensitive. It's very fascinating how the mind can look at the same thing from a different angle. And I feel we're just living in a civilization, a society where it's the same patterns, the same stories. It's like too much repetition of the same pattern. It makes it like the blade dull. You know, the sharpness of the mind becomes dull if it's constantly fed the same pattern. You know, in this life, if you don't attempt a new pattern of living, it's as if you don't see a new dimension of living. So in the chat section, IMN says, is justice a construct of evolution or creation? I wouldn't look at it that way. I would say justice is event-oriented, and it's based on what value the moment had, and after the event, what value changed. I would say it's an honor to how the being has trusted the world already. Now, of course, that term is a very big term. I mean, the word justice, there's various ways you can see that term. There was nothing. Then there was a world. Then there was an unconscious world, unconscious self. Then there was the conscious self. Then there's the conscious world. And from the conscious world, it reaches back into the world. That means constant rise and fall of every civilization. I mean, I'm trying to envision an advanced civilization. I'm trying to see what kind of advanced communicator would that civilization have. Right now, we are experiencing from a first-person point of view existence of a biological creature. So we have access to the biological experience. So we can say we can, in the future, advanced communicators will have access to not just the biological experience, but also, let's say, a technological experience and an attempt to try to see if the mind can exist through multiple bodies. Maybe first an innovation through technology, then an innovation through genetics, which would be too horrific to even imagine, you know. But you see, there's technologies are like lightsabers. They have different colors, you know. For example, genetics, when technologies evolve in genetics, it's a bit scary. It's like the red lightsaber, for example, cloning technology in the future and whatnot. Sorry, guys. My attention is on the neighbor's lawn, and it's ridiculous because the neighbor is endlessly mowing the part of the lawn that's been mowed, and it's different people. So it's three different people mowing the same lawn, and from the angle I can see, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a person cross that lawn. You know, so it's ridiculous. Like this is seriously like a lawn mowing project going on, like a four-man, you know, lawn mowing project. Anyways, guys, evolution is upon us as always. Now we can direct it. We should wonder about communication and sophistication. We should wonder about how our communication is leading to technology and the types of technology that arise from it. We have to see that right now in the world there is a sensitivity to language because we identify with thoughts, but we're not actually thoughts. Thoughts come and go. We identify in the moment as much as there's an expression threshold the person has. I mean, realistically, it's kind of odd feeling like a human being on this planet if you don't express throughout the day and if you don't receive throughout the day, right? So it's as if there is an inner life that is becoming as important as the outer life. This inner life is more like how the attention is its own mind, noticing the inseparability of your awareness with the edge of the sky.
You see, then you become interested in your own mind, and all those Jungian synchronicities, they were trying to be a mirror for your mind. And once you realize you are the mind, you will laugh, because it's like you can give the mind a face, but you're the one looking through those eyes. And so we became creatures that we evolved from objectivity, then we moved to subjectivity, and we're evolving beyond that. And that's where I'm giving this talk. People are realizing what's this whole awakening New Age movement going on. It's all these people realizing that they don't have to be a thought their whole life. That there is more to life when you realize that there's a beauty to the unknown as well. It's beauty, there's a beauty to not knowing stuff as well. I'm telling you, if a person says, like, to have 100% full knowing of the moment, there would be no reason to move. Like, you know, this is why eternity is an idea really for the inner realms. For the outer realms, you must, in some sense, stand in the honor of the working. But we're learning to work as minds moving matter rather than matter just dictating the mind's movement. I would say, IMN. So guys, IMN asked this question: would civilization improve if we recognize in quotations the human-animal as more than one species, just as there are? See, the thing is, the world has become oversensitive. What does that mean? That means when the world feels it's on a sinking ship, everybody wants to hold on to something or find something to get on, right? So I would say right now it's a strange time. And this notion of the human animal, it is true. We are human beings. We're totally different from animals, but we still behave in animalistic ways. That means it's like we are conditionally, in certain circumstances, we're human. It's like a bunch of people where they're at a feast, like they're not fighting, they're all happy, you know? When there's food for everyone. But imagine they're on an island and there's like one burger. You know, everybody's gonna savagely fight for that experience. So you see, it's very. There is this kind of background program of animalhood, of course. It's just that if we stop identifying with language, the language has to evolve. That's what I'm saying. So I am in. Right now, I feel the most important thing that's going to change the human experience for the better is studying language on a collective scale, on a massive level. Every human being wonders about their inner realms. And think of it this way. It's like, just like scientists study the same external object, you know, it's as if we don't know if our internal objects are the same. Right now, believe it or not, I'm giving this talk. I have no idea how many people resonate with what I'm saying, where they're like, okay, what is this guy talking about? You know, like I have no idea how the artwork is coming across the eyes that I've never had. But I'm just saying that the evolution of this relationship is that the subjective evolution will come to a completion. So we will no longer be a subject, and then the world is moving again before it landed, but now consciously. So it's like we used to be an animal and then we evolved into the world soul. It's like, what you gotta do? It's like So anyways, guys, I feel I should end the talk here. Thanks for tuning in. And I encourage everybody to keep writing. And you might be like, Mr. Within, I don't write. And Mr. Within is going to be like, target future stuff. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings.